Hi everyone, welcome to a new series in which I am attempting to recreate Cedar Point in RollerCoaster Tycoon 2. So I like doing recreations in RCT a lot. I've done a lot of individual ride recreations, and I've done a full park recreation before of Jogga Lake a couple years ago. Never quite finished it, but really enjoyed my time spent with it. And I've been thinking about doing this one for a long time. Cedar Point is one of my favorite parks. I've grown up in Ohio, so I've been there quite a bit. I thought it would be really fun to try to redo it in RCT. I know a couple older recreations of Cedar Point exist, have been made over the years, and they're fine, but I want to try my hand at it, put my own spin on it. Especially now with OpenRCT 2, we have a lot more flexibility, a lot more power in the things we can do with the game. One of the biggest flaws with some of the other recreations I've seen is that the maximum map size of 256 isn't really big enough to fit the whole park in. It's an enormous park, mostly just because it's very long, but it's really hard to cram everything you need to cram in on such a comparatively small map. And now that we can go a lot higher, we can have a lot more room to breathe and get the layout looking a lot more natural and correct, I suppose. So for my build, I'm using OpenRCT2. I'm using no custom scenery, just because that's my typical playstyle. Custom scenery is fine, but it's a lot of extra stuff to think about that I would rather not have to think about for a park this size. I'm not using any custom flat rides, mostly just because I don't like the look of them, and I'd rather just shoestring them, something that looks a little bit normal, especially because you can get the scale a lot better that way. And I won't be using any custom trains, at least for now. The one thing would definitely be missing that I would like is the B&M wing coaster train for Gatekeeper. That the best we'll be able to get with vanilla RCT is the 4D coaster, but the trains are backwards, so it doesn't really quite work. So we'll see how that pans out. Another thing I want to try to do with this recreation is to focus a little bit more on aesthetics and making it just a good looking park over getting something that's a perfect recreation, because it will definitely look better. If you play to the game strengths rather than trying to create something that just is, pixel perfect to the real park. Not that we could ever do something like that anyway, as real parks aren't set to a grid, right? You have a lot of diagonals, a lot of weird angles in your layouts, your path layouts, your coaster layouts, everything. So there's going to be a lot of compromise as far as making something that looks good versus making something that's accurate. Hopefully we'll get as close to both as we possibly can, but we'll see how it goes. As I mentioned, Cedar Point is also a very large park. I don't know how long this is going to take. This might be a project that takes years if it ever finishes. I do have a tendency to pick up a project and drop it without completing it. Hopefully making this into a series will give me that motivation to actually get a lot of progress done on it. So we'll see how that goes. For now, at least, I'd like to focus on the layout specifically. So I'm building here the Midway with the gondola ride, Skyride. As the north station of Skyride kind of is the geographical center of the park, and I feel like from there it's a good place to kind of branch out and build from, so that way we're less likely to run into problems with the layout as we get closer and closer to finishing everything. So we're just going to start here with the main Midway, the 2 stations for Skyride, and all the flower beds in between. And then from here we'll be branching out onto the rides near the front of the park, and then the back half will probably come a little bit later. But we're just going to stick with this for now and make sure we get something that looks right as far as scale goes. Speaking of, you'll notice I've doubled the track for the Skyride, just to make it look a little bit beefier and fit with the scale of the park a little bit better. It's quite a long gondola ride, but with just 1 tile wide of track, it looks a little bit too narrow, a little bit too frail. So I figured this would be a good way to kind of bulk up the ride, make the stations look a little bit more like they've matched the size of the ride. I do want to give a shout out to users Borke and Kazulius, who did a Raptor recreation for the DKMP Ride Creation Contest number 32, and I am using a little bit of that as reference for some of this. They didn't include all the flower beds, so like the scale that they used isn't as close to reality as what I would like, so I'm not copying theirs one for one, but I am kind of using them as a bit of a jumping off point to get myself a bit of a head start as far as getting something at least down on the map that will hopefully make it a little bit easier to get started. So a lot of that said, that is the basics of the Midway just about done. A lot of the little details are going to come later. Like I said, I want to focus just on getting the big chunks down, the layout, major parts of the park, and then as we get closer to the end, we can focus more on smaller details, buildings and foliage and things like that, railings. Don't want to worry too much about getting all that stuff done in one section all the time. But that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you found this interesting, and if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments.